Hey everybody, I'm Erin Patrice and this is Hey Bay City.
Erin, in our last conversation, which was so good, by the way.
Yeah,
I don't know if you loved it, but I loved it.
I did.
So people, if you didn't listen to the episode 1 with Erin, go back and listen to it because it really lays the groundwork for this really incredible series that you're bringing to us here in Bay City through the help of Bay Area Community Foundation. And I'm looking forward to it so much. So if you haven't listened to episode 1, either listen to this episode all the way through and then go back and listen to it, or go back, hit pause right now, go back and listen to it, and then listen to this one, because it really is important to get some of the context here.
Yeah.
Because you like, if you don't understand the context, you could be like, so you're getting a bunch of people in a room and you're having a conversation?
Yeah.
Like, heck yeah, we are, and it's going to be amazing.
Yeah.
You, at the start of the pandemic, started to have these really critical conversations with people, and we talked about a couple of them in that first episode. When did this idea for the Including You series, this really intentional event, community series, come to be?
I guess it will go back to our first live show. So we had done about a year, I think, of online conversations.
Right.
And I actually was talking to someone and just said, hey, I want to bring our season back in. I'm trying to think of a cool way to do it. And she just randomly said, how about you do the live show? And I was like, oh, that's a good idea. I would love that. Did not even really cross my mind. And so we did a first one, and we were not able to do all of our topics in that couple hours that we were there. And
Because
people,
we like to overshoot. We're like, we're going to talk about 5 topics,
Yes.
and then an hour and a half later, you're still on number 1.
yes, and it just got so good. And people were like, oh my goodness, we have to do another one because it was so good. Mm-hmm. And so we did a second one like a month later. We just did another one. And after that, actually, it was the Midland Area Community Foundation. Someone from there came to me and said, hey, we really like what you're doing. Let's talk. And so that's how it started. And I was thinking, because I said, what do I want to call this? How do I want to do this series, right? Because I always find that one conversation is great, right? You can have a great conversation with somebody at a bus stop and you feel like you just changed your life. But I said, wonder if we have topics where we can grow with each other.
Right.
So if somebody comes to the first one, my hope is that they come to the 6th one or the 5th one and grow with me. We're all growing together. So that's where the Including You came from. I said, I like things to be pretty simple, right? I don't want this overcomplicated topic or umbrella, right, to these conversations. I said, including you. If we want change, we want growth, we want to build community, it includes all of us. And I just thought to myself, and that includes you, me, we, all of us. So that's how that came to be.
I love the idea of it being a series where I can go to the first event, but then I'm going to want to go to the second event because it's different people and different topics, but still as applicable to those folks up on the stage as it is to me. And it is very much like a package deal. It's not just, I'm really interested in that topic, but I'll never go to another one of these. So everybody can benefit from all of them. So maybe break it down all the way for me. If somebody hasn't seen you before and
Sure.
they don't know anything about what this event looks like.
Yeah.
Imagine I'm walking into the auditorium or the Pierre Marquette station and I'm seeing it for the first time. What am I going to see when I come to an Including You event?
It is a whole vibe. It's a whole experience.
Yeah.
And because it's funny, because when you study the science of all of our 5 senses, right? When you tap into more than one, it's something that happens with the brain, right? And also, I will add that growing up, dinner time or when we had like holiday dinners, it was always so joyous, right? Everybody came. Nobody cared if somebody was like a doctor or a janitor. Like nobody cared about that. We all just got together.
And even a lot of times too, like if you have a tense relationship with a family member and things are weird, or maybe you had a fight 3 months ago that you didn't really resolve, like at least for that day,
for that moment, yeah.
Everybody tries to put down their swords as much as they can. Now that I'm not speaking for every family, obviously.
Sure.
You have Thanksgiving dinners that get really weird.
or people are no longer invited to them.
Yeah.
But for the most part.
Yeah, for the most part, a lot of folks, like they understand that this is a moment. put down our swords, let's eat some food.
Yeah. And so that was important to me to have to incorporate that concept of the breaking bread. And not only with, I think, just culturally and just even when I was growing up religiously, right? Like different practices, it always surrounded meals, right? That breaking of bread. And it was almost like a truce. And you just say, we are all equal here. We all can play a part. So when people come in, they're going to see, well, they're going to hear music. We always have live music. That is the plan, to always have some type of live entertainment that we call our pre-show. Yeah, because for me anyway, music is just everything. It just sets a tone. It sets a precedent of what to, just like the vibe when you come in.
Opens people up a little bit too. It's not like you're walking into
this
a
quiet
library. How dare you speak before this?
Exactly.
Event.
Even though technically when you come to Midland, you will be walking into a library. And then into the auditorium. But yes, it's that idea that we're all just chill here. It's just to make it as cool and easy as possible, because we already know that discussing certain topics is hard for some people, right? So why add on to that? So what we try to do is take away that jitter, that anxiety from it, and just allow people to chill. So yeah, you have the music. Our team is absolutely fantastic. They greet people at the door. They greet people in the lobby. They greet you, and we just are a vibe. And I know everybody says that about their people, but I have a good group of people that work with me. And
I can't imagine working with you and not being a vibe.
Oh.
I think it's a prerequisite for being a part of the team.
and you know what? And that is something that I communicate, right? That that anybody that comes here should feel welcome. And if you can't do that, then maybe this isn't for you. And that's okay, because I don't want anybody to ever come in and feel like they don't belong there, because that's the whole premise of what we do, is that you can come in here.
And then really the foundation of a great conversation. You two people, at least, have to approach each other in a way that says, you are welcome into this space.
Yes.
You're safe here. We can be vulnerable here. Not necessarily setting the tone of we have to agree on everything.
Sure.
And as long as you're playing with me, I'm going to play with you. But you come into this space together where you can say, for the next 2 minutes, 30 minutes, 3 hours, whatever it ends up being, like, we're going to play this really experiential game of communication where we get to do something that is not just fun and not just edifying, but it's foundational to us as a human.
Yeah.
And so you have to set that tone of, this is an open space where you feel welcome, where you can be safe, where you can express yourself.
Yeah, and you're valued, right?
Yep.
We appreciate you being here. And it's so interesting. I always tell even the panelists, don't come here, and because what I found is that some people will come and then be different. It's no, I asked you to come here because I want you to be you. That was the whole point. I saw something in you that I thought would bring value to this conversation. So don't switch up on me. Be who you are. And I think that's and sometimes it's just maybe cameras or being in front of people, but
an unfamiliar situation.
Yes, and people are curious to say, okay, is this really a safe space? You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And I think that what makes us a little bit different is that we use safe space a lot, right? We say safe space a lot, but it's not really always safe, right? If a person really does not align with the culture of whatever group they're coming to speak to or with. And with us, it's totally different, in my opinion, right? We really want everyone. Mm-hmm. And that means the conservative, the religious person, whoever, right? I just throw these things out, left, all of that. I want all of it. And
I love your use of the word safe space. And just to clarify for the people that are listening, using it in the way of, it is a safe space. There's no political baggage there. Dump all of that. These are two words that are important to every single person. A space where you feel safe to be able to express what you value. And I love that about you and your work, and we can maybe get into this a little bit later. Sometimes people chafe at that a little bit. I really don't agree with so they should not be given a platform.
Oh, people actually say that, though.
Yes, I know.
They've said it to me.
Do you want to talk about that?
I'm open book.
Yeah, let's talk about it, because it's not all necessarily feel good and rainbows. Yeah. It's also a confrontation, and that's part of the growth that happens. But I'll let you talk about it. What would you say to people who might leave an event having heard opinions from people that they really strongly disagree with, and then look at the event as, well, you should not have invited XYZ person because of the values they hold? What would you say to somebody?
My answer always is, have you paid attention to what we do? Seriously. I have never hidden behind that. I've never tried to make it sound something. I've always been very clear. That is the intention of what we do. I always challenge whoever, right? First, I apologize if you didn't feel what you felt, but I also challenge people to search within, right? Because all this work, when I say including you, all this work is about self-awareness, all of it. It's not about the other people, it's you, it's me, right? If you felt challenged, uncomfortable for whatever reason, that's something you have to search within about, because the reality is that no matter where you go, to the grocery store, to church, to your job, to the coffee shop, there are going to be people that do not feel the same way as you. And you have to learn how to navigate through life with those different viewpoints. And that's what we're doing. So I can give you a perfect example. We had a show that we did, Agree to Disagree. That was the topic. And I invited a gentleman by the name of Ryan Kelly to come. He ran for governor as a Republican. And he was, you all can look him up. You will know everything about him, right? He's very transparent about who he is. He's very far. Okay, I'll just put it that way. And I was very clear that he would be invited. Him and I met online back in 2020. He was in the news about different things. This is when all the statue stuff was going on. People were trying to keep or get rid of statues. And so we met, talked to him, and conversation went well. We had things we agreed on, some things we didn't. And so I invited him because I always want a conservative view, if I can find one. And he agreed to come. He drove from Grand Rapids area, right? So that's about an hour and a half drive, maybe 2, depending on where.
Yeah, I was going to say probably 2, yeah.
Yes, and he was willing to come. You know, I didn't pay him anything or anything like that. And I was really appreciative of him coming in. And I remember people were very upset. Like they told me they were upset. They didn't think he should be there, that because of what he did. And he also was aligned with some of the stuff that happened January 6th. So people just thought that, why would you give him a platform? And I'm like, I'm not giving him anything. He has a platform. He literally has thousands of people that follow him, right? I'm not giving him anything. What I'm doing is, for me, being true to what I said I'm going to do. I'm a very clear person about things like that. And I don't hide away from my truth, right? And so he came. Some people were upset. And I remember the next day, as I put up my appreciation post, someone commented and said, I'll never forget this because it was so interesting to me, especially coming from the person that it was. And if they hear this, I'm sorry, but it was a public, right? It's
Right.
a public thing that happened. So anyway, they wrote that they really appreciated me having people from all over the Great Lakes Bay region to represent and to speak, except for the other. And I remember that, the other part. And that really stuck out because if anybody knows me, knows I do not go back and forth on social media. You rarely see me post anything except for a thank you. I respond to what other people say. I don't do a lot of commenting. But I felt like I needed to do that because I needed to help people understand the authenticity of the work that we do. So I said, I will always invite the others. I've been an other, right? People have considered me an other. So I will always invite people that do not necessarily align with the norm in that space, because he can go somewhere else and people will celebrate him. That's the beauty of this, is that our personal views or perspectives do not answer everything. They're not the end all be all, because in our little part of the world, we may feel very enraged by this person. Somewhere else, he might be considered like a king, right? So that's the part we think that we have so much, I hate to use the word power, but we feel like we have so much power that our voice, right? Our one voice can shut someone else down. And we shouldn't, for me personally, I don't try to do that.
So what, from your perspective, what is the benefit to me, or what is the opportunity presented to me sitting in a room and listening to somebody who I vehemently disagree with?
It's growth, right? I've had people tell me things that they don't agree with, and this is just in my life, right? I had to learn how to receive what people consider criticism, right? When really it's just someone's viewpoint. We take it in as a negative instead of saying, how can I use this as fuel? How can I use this as a planted seed to have something grow within me, right? Even if it's just a matter of growing patience, right? To be able to sit through a conversation or something that you're listening to and not be, I know we like to use the word triggered, right? By everything. If we are so easily moved by everything, what are we really standing for?
It's interesting you say that. This morning I saw a quote, a Marcus Aurelius quote, and that sounds very pretentious. I'm sorry, guys.
Yeah.
But I saw this Marcus Aurelius quote, and his point was, if someone says something to you or does something to you, and you feel wounded by it, that's a choice that you make.
It is.
And so you can also choose to make the other choice and not feel wounded. And he ends it with, and if you don't feel wounded, you aren't. And I think that applies so well to what you're saying, in that if that to learn that skill of not feeling wounded, that takes experience, that takes exposure, that takes receiving a piece of criticism or hearing an idea that you don't like, responding to that and making a choice about that. And if we make better responses and better choices to those things, we are better human beings with better relationships, who function better in the world, who communicate better with people, who can make more effective and better change. There's so many opportunities there. And
that's the word, opportunities.
Yeah, and I love this idea of you presenting us with this opportunity to say, to experience that in whatever, it might be agreement, but it also might be disagreement. And then I'm confronted with, how do I manage that? There's so many correlations between your work and one of our mutual friends in Saginaw, Kevin Jones, from Black Teaking. And if you don't know his work, you need to. We've got a podcast rolling out with him soon.
He has a museum. Come and help him.
Yeah, help him in the museum, because he's absolutely brilliant. And I remember when I walked into his first pop-up, Black Teaking in Saginaw, and you walk into this room with 3,000 artifacts, antiques, pieces of art, all of these things from the Black experience, ranging from the most beautiful things that you've seen to the absolute most racist things that you've seen. And I remember walking into that room and being challenged in a way that I could never have been. Not on the internet, not anywhere else, but you walk into the room and you have this experience of, okay, this is a point of decision. How do I feel about this? What do I think about this? Do I think it's right? Do I think it's wrong? All of these things, and I walked out of there changed in ways that I still don't really know, because I had this opportunity to be confronted with something like that. And so I think that's a beautiful thing about your work, in that we have 7 people, however many people on stage saying, hey, this is what I believe. And for us in the audience, it's a moment of choice and a moment of decision and a moment of opportunity to say, like, how would I respond to this question?
Yeah.
Have I really thought about what I think deep enough to be convicted about what I think? Am I just going through life saying, I think this, so it must be true, the end? So it's a really beautiful opportunity.
Yeah, I appreciate that. I love being challenged, right? And I think about when people are in relationships, we're all in relationships really, but like, you have a partner, you don't always agree with everything. You have to learn how to talk through it. You have to, or what's the other alternative? Divorce or separation? You have to learn how to coexist. And it was funny, as you were, right before you were saying that, I was thinking about talking about the N-word, right? And with me being Black, people like to use that sometimes as a way to get to me or make me upset. And this is nothing against people who get upset by it, because rightfully so. I don't. Only because I refuse to give someone that kind of power to be able to speak a word and it turns my whole life around. I'm not doing that. So when people try to use that as some type of weapon against me, you can't, because I took that away from you. So to me, it's the same thing sometimes with people when they say things because some people say stuff to get you. You have to take control over that. And again, back to the N-word, right? Rightfully, people should be upset, right? I choose not to, only because I know they're saying it to change me, right? Shift me. And I can't allow that. So again, I had to ask myself, even though the word is a terrible word, do I want to allow that to have so much power over me for the rest of my life that anytime someone even whispers it, I just become enraged and just crazy, or just no, because I'm not that. Right. So I had to say to myself, you're not that. So I choose not to respond that way.
I admire that, because your opinion comes from a place of a decided personal value.
Yeah.
That this is something in my life that I value, and therefore I'm going to act in a way that is aligned with that. And I think that's so beautiful. And look, speaking of beautiful things, I don't want to give people listening the impression that these conversations are designed to be controversial.
No.
Or like you're going to go to a series and grab your popcorn, people. There's going to be fireworks, because most of the time it's incredibly beautiful conversations, and you get to explore these topics that are so important to our everyday lives, and we feel compelled to, but you don't really sit down and say, hey, can we have a 60-minute conversation about integrity? Like you don't have those opportunities. Over the course of last year's work in Midland, do you remember a conversation or a moment that was especially beautiful or impactful or positive, or anything that just moved you in that direction?
It's really interesting because the conversations are always good. Like I really do enjoy them, and we've never really had anybody just get crazy on the stage. Like never have had that, and I'm thankful.
Which is great.
Which is amazing. People, I communicate what I expect, and that's just respect. Yeah. That's it. And then people honor it, and it's really been that simple.
I think that's amazing. Sorry to interrupt. I just want to point out, because you would get the impression on social media that as soon as somebody says something that somebody might disagree with, that immediately the show is over and people are throwing microphones and how dare you. You would get the impression from social media that would be the reaction, but here in person, it's not, because people are approaching it with respect.
Yeah. And again, it all goes with, these are progressive movements, right? These are building blocks. So we don't just get something together and just throw it out there. It's curated, right? We approach it with love, and from the beginning to the very end. And so when you ask about moments, the moments really for me have been what I call the after, right? I have these pictures and these testimonials that I consider the after, because really, the conversation is great. Like, I love it. We all have a good time. But it's those after moments that really have sealed the deal for me. This is working, right? This is really something that we can be proud of as not only an organization, but a community, right? Because I've had agree to disagree. There was a lady, came there. She wrote me a couple days later, and she had not spoken to her brother since 2020 because of who he was voting for president. And after that show, she told me she decided to reach out to him, right? And maybe visit with him. That is success, right? We've had panelists that would never sit down with each other because of what they feel on different opposite ends of the spectrum, that have met up for coffee afterwards and keep talking, right? Or follow each other on social media to get to know each other more. That is success. So for me, it's about the seed planting, right? Because a lot of times we have these events, it goes well, we're like, yes. And I always say, yes, I'm excited, I'm proud of my team. I'm like, oh my goodness. But it's the after moments that I get later that people privately write me, right? They don't put it out and publish it, or maybe I'll ask them, do you mind if I share this? I don't have to say your name, right? But those are the moments that I find a lot of pride in. I get a little emotional about it because you have dreams, right? And you say, oh, this is possible. But when you see the connections that people make, or the epiphanies that go on within that they share, or talking to their mother again, that is some deep stuff, right? And it's not anything that I'm doing. It's the whole experience of being able to be somewhere and just share. And then the audience members get to sit there and listen and reflect themselves. I've had people there that were 89 years old. A lady there was 94. She wanted me to know she was 94 and how much she enjoyed it. And I've had children there. A lady wrote me and said, can I bring my young children? Please do. And they came, and she said, typically they're all over the place. They listen. And then on the way home, and once they got home, they kept asking questions about, oh, what about this? What about this? that is success. So sometimes it's hard when people say, how do you measure? How do you measure? That's how I measure it. And so, yeah.
How do you put my life is different because of this experience onto a spreadsheet?
Yes.
Yeah.
So that is a success for me.
Wow, beautiful. I have so much respect for this work because a lot of times in my work, I have these incredible conversations with people. Like these people that have been members of a community for decades, and they may never have been able to tell their story.
Yeah.
And I'm sitting in their back kitchen on a stool, and they're telling me this stuff and just absolutely blowing my mind. And I walk out of those conversations so many times thinking, I wish that 50 people were here watching that. Their neighbors or their fellow business owners or folks from the government. Like, I wish they could have sat here. Because
it's the energy.
Yes.
It's the energy. And that's the thing that's why I tell people, yes, you can watch them on YouTube after we've done it, right, and published it. You can hear about it via a podcast or via someone else's word of mouth. But being there is the beauty, right? Because you feel it when you're there, right? And people stay after. I have to kick people out, Phil. I have to tell people, look, y'all, we got to go.
We only booked this for 2 hours.
Yes, and my beautiful friend, the guy that maintains the building after we leave, he bless his heart, he just looks at me and he like peeks his head in. Yeah. And I'm like, I'm sorry. But people stay and they want to talk. Then they move it outside. Yeah. And I tell people, okay, y'all can be outside as long as y'all want. I'm going. Like, I got to go. But yeah, that's the beauty in it. Yeah.
It's a kind of energy that you can only experience in person.
Yeah, with other people.
There's no replacement for it. I love how you pointed out, you can watch stuff on YouTube or you can see it posted on the internet, but there will never be any sort of replacement for the magic that can happen when you're sitting across from somebody in a room and having a conversation with them. A very open, vulnerable, safe conversation. It is absolutely one of the most important experiences in a person's life. And the sad thing is, a lot of us go through most of our lives never having that, never experiencing that. Some of us don't even know that we're robbing ourselves of it because we're so infatuated with the internet, or we're so infatuated with conflict, or we're so infatuated with these things, and we never really give ourselves this opportunity to sit down and have that kind of experience. It's one of the most amazing things.
Yeah, it's interesting. I always think about, because growing up in the inner city, like, I caught the bus a lot. So we would catch the bus sometimes to school. We catch the bus downtown, wherever. And I just remember those conversations I would have with the lady at the bus stop, right? Or the gentleman at the bus stop. And you don't know each other. I don't know her name is Dorothy, right? I don't know she's a single mom. I don't know him, right? I don't know anything about him, that he's on his way to a job, that he's going to work for 13 hours. We just talk. And that is how I wanted to feel when you come to one of our shows. We don't put up bios. People have asked me over and over again, like, you should do that. Nope, I never will. I won't. And there's a reason why I don't.
Tell me why.
So, just like those conversations that you have at the bus stop, it's authentic because there's no presumption, right? You don't have to live up to anything, right? If I'm a CEO or if I have a PhD, the person at the bus stop doesn't care. We are both on the same bus, right? Same thing in life. We're all journeying through this together. So if someone, say for instance, I have someone come on that is the DEI adjunct professor at SVSU, right? And somebody, I put out their bio, they have their doctorate, they have all these different things. Someone coming that I may have invited that's conservative or see things a different way, does not even believe in DEI, right? Will already have a judgment about this person. Right. We already judge people by what we look like, right? So we do that. So I can't help with that. I can't make people walk in with blindfolds on, right? But I can take out that part of it. And I just never will do it. I want people to come as Dave. I want people to come as Phil. You're just Phil. Now, people know you. They know you, right? And then also, if you look up someone's name, you could probably figure it out. When I announce our panelists, it's just their first name. I don't put a last name. I don't put any, because that's just Laura, right? And I want Laura also to feel comfortable to come as Laura and not feel like she has to live up to her title, because we all walk around with these titles and we feel like we have to live up to them. And then that's when the authenticity kind of plays a back seat, right?
I think that's so great because it's so beneficial for both the audience and the person. Like you said, if you're throwing your bio out there and you're a certain person with a certain thing, it's going to contribute to this feeling like I have to go in
with this hat on.
Yeah, with this hat on, and I have to play that role as opposed to being yourself. And then from the audience perspective, I love that because you have this list of bios, and immediately what you're thinking is, I don't want to listen to that person, or I want to listen to that person. And now you're throwing all of this extra thing, all this stuff on top of it when you need to be there to hear what they have to say.
Yes.
Not based on what you think they're going to say.
Exactly. And that's the thing is that if I have a panelist that I prefaced it with, oh, she's an evangelical, right? Conservative. People make assumptions about who she votes for, all these different things. This, wait a minute. I was talking to someone a couple months ago, and he shared that he wanted to put up an American flag, right, outside his house. And he said that he didn't do it, told his wife, I don't want people to think that I'm those people.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, like a right-wing type, everything you think about, that's what he talked about. And I said, that's so interesting that you live in a country and you want to show pride for where you live, but you're afraid to do it because of all the assumptions that come with it. And we have this real black and white view of people, like that if you align with this and you must align with all of this too. Right. It's not real, right? So I take all that away. And my hope that people can come and be in their true self. Like when you go home, for women, we take off things to feel free, right? Yep. And then people take off their shoes or whatever else, and you just are there. That's how I want to be. Is I think about when you have friends over, right? And when you first start off, somebody may be eating dinner and drinking some wine or pops or whatever. And you had that real surface conversation, like, how was your day? How are the kids? How's the weather? Blah, blah, blah. But then once somebody had a couple glasses of wine, right? People are full and now snacking on like the candy and the junk food, right? People have taken their shoes off, put their feet up on the couch around midnight, right? That's when the real person comes out.
Now we're having a conversation.
And that's what I want people to feel like when they come, that if I could get couches as opposed to a chair, maybe sometimes to have people, I would. I just think that taking away all that stuff, mommy, daddy, the title of, like I said, the business owner, who cares, right? Yep. Because at the end of the day, we're talking about bias, judgment. We're talking about societal expectation. Nobody cares about that stuff. Who are you as a person, right? And that's where the you part comes in. Who are you? Yeah.
Ah, beautiful. Speaking of conversations and talking about specific topics, I'm going to give people a little sneak preview of the 6-show series that you're bringing to Bay City next year. Number 1, talking about societal expectations. Number 2, talking about bias and judgment. Number 3, about empathy and tolerance. 4, honesty and transparency. 5, morality, ideology, and religion. And 6, the greater good, the big picture. How do you go about choosing the topics for a show? What's that look like?
My heart.
Yeah.
I know that sounds kind of cliche, but I don't know. When I sat down and thought about that, to me, those build on each other, right? Because the first one, societal expectations, I mean, we all have that, where people expect things out of us. If we're a woman, if we're a man, if we're, a mother, if we're a grandmother, if we're all these things, right? If we're a teacher, they expect things out of us, and that could become heavy. It could be hard to live up to all those expectations. So first we need to get to the root of stuff. Who are you? Because a lot of times when you follow societal expectations, you're not really following your heart, right? I remember I talked to a lady one time that she probably, I think was like 72, 73, and she shared with me that she always wanted a nose ring. But because her husband worked at Dow, she didn't think that she could show up to events with a little small nose ring. And I remember telling her, like, wow, That is so deep to me. We were having a real in-depth conversation, and I said to think, you spent all these years denying yourself that because of what you think everybody else would think, when they probably wouldn't even notice it.
Yeah.
It's so, but we live our lives that way based on what other people may think about us.
From even growing up, I always wanted tattoos, and specifically, and my wife is gonna cringe at this, but I don't care anymore. I love you, wife, but I want 2 sleeves, so arms completely full of tattoo. And from grade school, that's what I wanted. But I knew that I wanted to be a teacher when I grew up, and that if I had something like that, not only might people look down on me as a teacher, but I was told in a lot of capacities, both very explicitly and just implicitly, that I may not even get a job if I had something like that.
Yeah.
And I'm saying that because what I love about this list of societal expectations and empathy and tolerance and honesty and morality, that these are all topics that shape exactly who we are as a human. Every single day, you are going to wake up, and if you don't hit all 6 of these, you're going to hit 4 out of 6, 5 out of 6, multiple times every single day in every single relationship. Like taking honesty with your partner, honesty with your children, honesty with your employer, honesty with your coworkers,
with yourself.
Honesty with yourself. I love that you put honesty with yourself. Like we confront this idea of honesty, whether or not to be honest, and if we are honest, how honest are we willing to be? Almost constantly throughout every single day, but we never sit down and think for even 5 minutes. And I'm judging myself in this as much as anybody. Like we never sit down and think for 5 minutes am I being honest with myself?
Yeah.
Am I being as honest as I need to be with my spouse or my children?
And is there a good time to be dishonest, right? We talk about that too. We talk about when is there a time? Is there a time, right, to be dishonest or to bend the truth?
And then you loop the idea of session number 5 of morality in there.
Yeah.
If immediately some people are saying, well, dishonesty is always wrong all of the time. And so now you're confronting this concept of morality. Do I value honesty and morality more, or do I value this more? And let
me give you this perspective, Phil. And this is what I talked about when we did it in Midland. What was that, last month? We talked about honesty and transparency. And someone did say you should always be honest. There's no time to be dishonest. And one of the panelists shared an example, and so did I. Coming from a relationship that was violent, there were times where I was dishonest, right? Because I knew that being honest would result in war. Yeah. So there were times I was dishonest because it was survival for me, right? And a panelist brought up, you're in a classroom and a shooter comes in, right? And you don't know they're there. You run out and they say, is there anybody else in that room? And you say, no, it's 20 kids in there. But you say no because that's survival, right? So that's the part that sometimes we have to think about, because we always think about honesty in this real self-serving way. Right. But really, sometimes you have to think about what is dishonesty and what can it do or not do in that moment. So we talk about that too. I'm
going to add one example to what you're saying, just because I know that there's some folks listening and thinking you're arguing from the exception. Like, of course, in life or death situations you would, but in everything else, I think your point is that it lies on a spectrum. Further on the other side of the spectrum, what if lying or being dishonest helps your spouse in some way?
Yeah.
What if you're trying to save their feelings and you're trying to make them feel good about themselves? What about that?
Yes.
And then now I think that's okay. Now that's something that we can really confront and say, all of us have been in that situation.
Oh, yeah.
Like, what do you think about this?
Oh, I tell my husband all the time, if I'm bloated that month and I ask you, does this make me look like I'm bloated?
It's the dreaded, how does this dress look on me question.
Yes. Like in that moment, I would love for you to say you look beautiful, right? Because he may still feel that way. But no, you look fine. And even though I know And I may still change into something else. In that moment, I need to hear you say that, right?
Yes, I want you to be dishonest with
Yes,
me.
please lie. Please lie. Because if you say, yes, it makes you look bloated, it's
Yeah, I love it. I love it. Can we talk about
yeah.
number 3?
Yeah.
And because the word empathy just it always that's a word that has become such a big part of my life, because when this work started for me 4 years ago and up until now, I look at that as the biggest change that I've had in myself. And I would go so as far as to say, before this work of conversation and interviewing and telling people stories,
Yeah.
I don't know if I had empathy. I don't know if I really did. Was I kind? Sure.
Yeah.
Was I nice to people? Sure. Was I understanding to people? Sure. But now, 4 years later, sitting across from somebody and feeling like crying because of their story,
Yeah.
or like feeling a part of myself injured because of something that they've gone through, or just having my mind being blown. Like, how did you experience that? And you're still here doing this.
Yeah.
I don't think I had any kind of empathy. Talk to me about that. Why, take it in any direction you want. Why is empathy important? How do you gain it from conversation? Why do you need to bring it as a panelist to these conversations? Talk to me about that.
I think one part is just what you said, that self-discovery, right? Because I think that people think that they get sympathy and empathy confused, right? And which is really easy, right? But for empathy, for me, I think that especially in 2020, right? I saw a lot of people that just were not nice. They just weren't nice. It's just, oh my goodness. And I remember something that really triggered it for me to be able to want to talk about that was when the Ukrainian war started. I'll never forget this, because at the same time, the gas prices were going up. We had a new president, like all this stuff was happening. And I remember people, and it was a political thing, so it was left and right going back and forth. And I remember the left was putting up this meme that just drove me absolutely nuts, okay? And it said, you don't get to complain about gas while there are people being bombed in the Ukraine. And I remember thinking to myself, like, why do we have to measure who gets it and who doesn't? Why do we have to pick? If I give you some empathy, I can't give you any, right? Why do we have to do that? Why can't we say, that is terrible, it sucks, it's horrible that people are being bombed, and I feel sorry for this person who can't afford to put gas in their car to get to work, or especially with all these jobs right now we have that people use their cars for, right?
Yes, right.
Or taking their children to school. And so that really did something to me. And I said, what is this idea that we don't have enough to give, right? Across the spectrum. Why do we have to pick and choose?
Yeah, we look at it as this very limited resource that we also then need to weaponize to further whatever idea or opinion we have out in the world. Like, I empathize with you.
As long as
you agree with me on these 10 points, and then if you don't, then...
Well, think about it with the pandemic. I remember that like it was yesterday. I think most of us have moments during that time that just stuck with us. And I remember people, and again, this was a lot of people on the left, and I'm not picking on the left. These are just the stories that I'm remembering right now. But I just remember that sticking out. And I think it's because I grew up with a certain type of mindset. So I was around a lot more people that were on that side than that were conservative. Yep. Okay, so maybe that's, it was a thing that I was so close to that I paid a lot of attention to some of the stuff that they did, because I felt like, I almost felt betrayed, if that makes sense, right? Because I'm like, oh, you said you were the good guys, right? And I remember, I will never forget this. Someone ended up getting COVID, and they were one of the people that refused to wear masks, get all that stuff, right? And I didn't say the word, because some people, they like blank you out if you say the V word, right? Anyway, they decided not to get that and they ended up getting COVID, right? And I will never forget one of the people that I really admired. I admired this person and still do in some ways. I remember they said, I hope they die. because they decided not to do this and they did all this stuff. So I hope they die. And I remember thinking, that's really what you want? You really want this person to die? And that's where I started thinking. And it was just so many different things. I could tell 1,000 stories about why empathy really stuck out to me. But I thought when we talk about including you, we talk about change, moving the community forward, having that type of connection, empathy's got to play a part in that.
Yeah.
It has to.
Talk to me more about this idea of these conversations and how they move a community forward. How do you feel that having these conversations at these events, and not just these events, but these kinds of conversations in our meetings and our one-on-one interactions, how do you feel that these kind of open, vulnerable, transparent, honest, deep conversations moves a community forward?
We are a collective, but we're also individuals. So if each individual does their part to do that self-awareness work, right, that growth within themselves, we naturally are better people to be around, to get along with. And think about those times when you've had a conversation with someone that you really didn't know that well, but it just got deep, almost like heavy, right? And you walk away and you say, wow, even though that was so heavy, I feel good, because not only did you listen to that person, you release some stuff too. And that's what I tell people. This is a give and receive type of thing. This is not just all take or all give. This is something that you have to be committed to when you come into that. I am going to not only receive, but I plan to give. And giving can look so many different ways. When you receive, you're receiving what that person's saying. That means that you're actively listening. You're actually listening to what they have to say. You're taking it in. You're giving it a moment to pause and process what they're saying, right? So you can really hear them and not just that surface talk, right? And then when you're giving, what you do is not only are you giving of yourself and your energy, but this helps you out in the community, right? You may take something else and say, wow, something there really resonated with me. Let me take this forward. So it's these ripple effects. And I think that's the part that we miss. We look for these big, grand expressions, and it's not always like that. A lot of times it's those real small moments of either joy, of gifting somebody something because of something that you heard that did something to you on the inside.
I remember when I first got into community work,
Yeah.
I would relentlessly talk about these amazing local businesses that I absolutely love. And I still do.
Yeah.
But I'll never forget a conversation I had with Jaime Azurieta. He's a friend of mine out in New Jersey, and he works with communities and businesses working on their storefronts and things like that.
Yeah.
And he's originally from South America and moved to New Jersey. And we were having this conversation about, it was around the time of COVID, about supporting local businesses.
Yeah.
And I love what he talked to me about, because he was like, we have to be careful about how we promote and try to uplift our communities. For example, if there's a baker in town, artisanal baker, crafted, like the finest bread that you can buy, and it's $9, $10 for a small loaf of bread. And then we come out as a community and we say, look how amazing that is. This is amazing bread. It is amazing bread, and they're doing amazing work, and they're doing amazing things. But what he cautioned me about was, but not everybody in the community can afford $10 bread.
Yeah.
And so when you come out and that becomes the narrative of your community of, look at this amazing $10 loaf of bread. Look at these amazing clothes that are $250 for a pair of jeans. Look at this amazing restaurant that's going to cost your family of four $600 to eat at. If that becomes the prevailing narrative, what we're also signaling to people is that they can't afford to live in this community.
Yeah.
Not our intention at all.
Sure.
We want to support these local businesses, and they are amazing, and they're so important to our community. But he really stretched my brain into that empathy and in understanding, like, I can say something and 100% well-meaning, but if I don't have the empathy and the understanding of my community to say, I might be saying that to people and they look at that as exclusion.
Yeah.
That's important. And I think when you said it makes all of us better and it makes our community better, I think part of it is it leads us to understand our community in new and different ways. Because I may never, in my circles, I may never talk to people like that. But here they are on stage saying, this is my experience and this is why I think that I do. And now I walk out and saying 40% of our population here are people from that demographic. That's a big deal.
Yeah. So, and we have to honor people's experiences. And I take it back to this, just like when I invited Ryan Kelly, he represents a big portion of the community I live in. Mm-hmm. So if you're saying to him that he's not welcome there, what are you saying to the people in the community that you say you're fighting for? And that's the point. I think people miss that. Just like when I said the comment earlier about the left versus right, and the left was supposed to be the good guy. It's not because I think that only left people are good. It's because growing up, that's what I was taught, right? Mm-hmm. I was taught that it was like this left versus right, and the left is good and wants everybody
evil. Yeah.
Yes. Mm-hmm. And so I'm saying, if you're saying that you're the good, you can't wish death on me. Yeah. It doesn't work like that.
Right.
So of course, and I just want to make sure I say that, because I want all people to come. Like I've enjoyed talking to people who have different views, right? Mm-hmm. I have some conservative views. I mean, I enjoy talking to people who think differently and also are not afraid to be that lone wolf, right? Mm-hmm. I have no problem with that. So back to what you were saying in regards to community, yes, we teach people that they aren't welcome there based on the way we present things. Mm-hmm. And a lot of times it's unintentionally, right? Because we're just so excited about this bread because we ate, the bread was good. Mm-hmm. We want everybody to enjoy it, not realizing that everybody can't.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah. And again, just to clarify, because don't want anybody taking words out of context. Sure. You should absolutely do that. You should promote local businesses. Yes. You should support them. They are amazing.
Yes.
It's just a greater understanding of our community commands that we have to understand how other people might be taking that, because empathy, because of love, because of that leads to greater communities, because that leads us to maybe help people who need help in a better way down the road. Like, it just makes everybody better when we expand that and we hear varying perspectives, varying opinions, and we have a more nuanced of exactly who we are, because the rose-colored glasses can 100% love. Like, it's not just ignorance, or it's not just I'm XYZ and this place is beautiful and if you disagree I hate you. It's just it's so important to wear the right kind of glasses, and glasses that are, you can see the good, you can see the challenges, you can see all these things.
And you may have to change your glasses. You may have to change the glasses, right? Yep. Try some different pair. And the thing is that's so interesting is that it's really funny that you had to kind of preface that, right? Because because we know in this age, people will take one word, one sentence, and just run with it. Yeah. So I'm always thinking about, okay, I want to make sure I don't say this, but then also I have to be myself. And I'm sharing, again, my experience. And because I remember one time, one show, I did have a lady that commented that she didn't like the fact that people were saying things about Midland, because I don't remember I think it was about societal expectations, and people were sharing some of their experiences of being a person of color, or I think a woman, different things like that. Mm-hmm. And the person did not appreciate some of the things that were shared about Midland. And as I thanked her, of course, for giving feedback and sharing her perspective, I also just reminded her that people are there to share their experience. And if that's the experience, we want that. We want the truth. And so in no way am I ever going to dog out religion, people's politics, their city, where they live. But if I go into a city and every time I've gone into that city, I get stopped by a police officer that asks me, what are you doing here? That's my experience. I didn't get to experience the place with the good bread, right? Mm-hmm. I didn't feel comfortable to even go venture out to the bakery because I was questioned. We have to understand that, again, people's experiences don't always align with ours, but that is the beauty of the conversation. Yeah. One
phrase I tell communities whenever I work with them is that people's perception of a place is limited by their experience of it.
Yeah.
In that we have a perception of where we live because we've experienced where we live, and that has shaped us into our viewpoint, our perspective. And who are we to say that everyone has to have that same perspective? Yeah. Considering here in Bay City, we're 37,000 different people. Yeah. Like the assumption that everyone has that same perspective, not just on the city, but on life and social issues
unrealistic
and opinions. It's so completely impossible. Anybody that's ever been to a meeting with 10 people, five people, 2 people, yes. like anybody in those situations, you know how hard it is to get people aligned. And then you blow that up to a community of 37,000 people, or 57,000 or 100,000 people. Like, you're looking at something impossible. And so there has to be an answer different than we all have to agree on this or else. Yeah. There has to be another way to work through that. And I think the primary way is through conversations like this.
Yeah. Yeah. People outside of, I'm just using Midland example because I live there. People outside of Midland think everybody there is rich or racist or bougie and all these things. And I'm like, there's some really good people in Midland, like some excellent, amazing people in Midland. And then there's some people that aren't so much from my perspective.
Welcome to every community, in the entire world.
Exactly. Exactly. So when people have these absolutes, I always like to challenge, is that realistic? Is that possible? Is that really the truth? And so, I don't know. I could go on about that, but that's okay.
I think that's a great segue to something that you and I have talked about in the past, the importance of humility.
Yes.
In situations like that, I think the open door, the act of opening a door to the possibilities that these kind of communications present is humility.
Yeah.
And even if it's 1%, you're coming in with 1% of, I might be wrong about this, or even less for the people that kind of chafe at that, I might not be as right about this as I could be.
Yeah.
Or there's other perspectives that I'm not aware of, and it's important for me to hear those, so that not necessarily to change my mind, so it could even be to reaffirm my opinion.
Sure.
But you need the humility to be able to enter into this space to say, I'm open enough to say that I might not be 100% right about something. And that's a great opportunity.
Yeah. No? Yes.
Do you know when the first event is? The first date?
January 9th.
January 8th, I think.
It's the 9th. We changed
it's the 9th?
It. Yes, we changed it because that was an error. So I have to we actually have new flyers coming.
Oh, do you? Okay,
yes,
cool.
Because I don't like doing things on Mondays.
Same. So first event is on January 9th. Where is it going to be held? Tell me kind of the hard details.
The Pierre Marquette Station. Is that what you all call it? Yep. And so at the Bay Area Community Foundation. And what's cool too is that we have our entertainment already, and he is a local guy.
Awesome.
The Pesky Kid.
Pesky Kid, Ben Champagne. What a cool dude Ben Champagne is.
Yeah, so I'm really excited because it's really interesting because I tried to get him in Midland, and our schedule just didn't align. Yeah. He was traveling the world and just could not do it. And so I went back to him and said, hey.
He put on a killer block party for the 3rd Street Star Bridge.
That's what I heard. I wanted to come to it, but I was out of town myself.
Yeah. If I could go back in time and be as cool as Ben Champagne, I would, because that dude is cool. So I'm looking forward to that music part. On January 9th at the Pierre Marquette Depot, that's 9th. I won't give you the address because I'm looking at a bunch of numbers and I'm glazing. I'll put it in the caption.
It's 1,000 Adams. I just know
1,000 Adams.
I just know that because it just sticks out. I'm not good with numbers.
Google Maps, people. Starts at 6 p.m. That's a pre-show entertainment. 6:30 to 8:30 p.m. is the live show. Are there tickets, or can I just show up, or how does that roll?
So you can just show up. We do have, when you go to our website, when we start kind of advertising for it on the website, you can go on to Eventbrite, and we have just register. It's all free, so nobody has to pay anything. We just like to keep track of our numbers because it is a smaller venue,
right?
So we want to just make sure of that.
It helps for planning.
It helps for planning.
If we go, we got 100 people RSVP'd, we know there could be more. So are we going to be able to? Yeah, it just helps.
Plus we'll have treats at each one, so we want to get a number for that as well. So it does help. But yes, people can drop in.
Very cool. What's your website before I forget to ask you?
So it is tbv.org. So that is the Breaking Bread Village, tbbv.org.
Beautiful. Erin Patrice, I am so looking forward to the series here in Bay City. I'm going to be at every single one of the shows because, man, just some of the most important work. And I have so much respect for you.
I appreciate
I have so
that.
much respect for all the panelists
Yeah.
that really come on, and they're coming in and they're saying, you know what? I am willing to really show myself and express myself in this way because man, terrifying in a lot of ways, and they're willing to sit up there because they value the work too. And so, man, I want to thank you. I want to thank Diane and the rest of the crew over at the Bay Area Community Foundation, because without them, like, you need support and you need somebody to invite you in and say, hey, we love this, and they're the ones that did that. So, man, I'm looking forward to this work. Erin Patrice, thank you so much for joining me today.
Yes, thank you, Phil. Thank you. I appreciate it. And go Bay City.
You're awesome.
Oh.
Heck yeah.